And we are live talking about episode 7, episode 8 of Skeleton Crew. And once we talked about these two episodes, we will be talking about the entire season. Yes, I know we are like 2 weeks late because Mandalore wasn't feeling it, but now we are here. That's what matters the most.
I
How
had
are
no
you,
voice.
Mandalore?
Much better because I can actually talk. And from those samples I sent you of how my voice was, I was quite robotic in voice talking, and that's how I actually talked. And that's the most I could talk at the time. Since then, I'm feeling great. I still feel like crap, but different wise.
At least you're feeling better. At least now you can talk. That's a
No one
good start,
That's
recommended
right?
hurting.
Canadian. No one recommended Canadian healthcare for you.
Yeah, they would have told me to go and die.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so no.
This is the service we get here. But maybe we will have a Grace showing up at some point.
Yes,
How are you, Dlord?
I am good. I've been battling my own little issues, but other than that, pretty well.
Amazing. So we will let Dlord start with what did you think of the seventh episode of Skeleton Crew?
I'm gonna feel like I think I've said this, and I said this over when I was watching it. The problem is you needed a good lore dump and an explanation why the series is the way it is, because there's been a lot of the mystery of like, why do you have the treasure planet, right?
Yeah.
Like, why were the planets forgotten? It looks like some of these were just lost, and then they consolidated it on at Aden. And I feel like, okay, there's a point of you could have done, you were needing a good explanation dump for why, and it was supposed to set up for the finale. And I didn't think it was terrible. It's kind of like, but I was kind of let down with the idea of you're not doing it. You can't compress a show. I felt like they should have had like an episode or two, maybe, to explain the full history, not just say, oh, you were always told it was a treasure planet when you graduate.
I disagree with that, and mainly because I feel like the 8 episode run we had was perfect. Any thoughts on that, Mandalore?
Yes. I think for all the things they tried to push into the show, it did seem lacking. Like they just kind of rushed the other shit. Like they referenced the other planets. Like you'd think that should have been part of the journey was them going to each planet, and like each part of the map had been destroyed for that planet, but they could take parts from each planet of what was left to sort of show, to sort of make it a little bit more
So what I have a
explorative.
theory. I have a theory because on the planet, when you see they go to like the war planet, the war torn version of the planet, Mandalore, just stay with me.
Mhm.
That was a sister, one of the sister planets. Like we have the pirate adventure, which I'm fine. Like apparently they've known about this, and when we get the explanation, when, by the way, when you get the explanation when the fucking timeline and where it fits, you're like, okay, doesn't make sense. So the idea of all the planets were either forgotten about or why it was set up, you don't get really that good idea. Like, and they still have the whole idea that Jude Law's character, there's no explanation for it. It's fine that he does in episode 7, he does what he does. But the journey to the set, all the planets, they should have at least seen a couple of them.
More than just
Be-
the one.
because the one that was war torn, surviving, that is similar. So apparently, all these planets were identical. Is from what I'm gathering. Right,
Yeah,
Mandalore?
I th- I think they could have. They didn't necessarily need to do. How many planets were there? The 5.
The four? The
I think
four.
they could have at least done one more planet.
But
Um,
where would you fit that in? Would you
I
add
think there should have
a
been more
ninth
episodes.
episode?
I don't. More of what I have to say about everything is more tied into the whole. So
We'll say it as a whole.
Okay.
But I
well,
think the
no.
episodes.
I just as the whole with the whole series, but I'll keep that till the end. I think there could have been more episodes. I think that there was too few episodes and that they were too short. Um, these are for children, so they didn't need to do all the lore connecting and all the lore building. It was more just, but they know that this is for Star Wars fans. That adults like us will watch it and sort of judge it.
Yeah.
But
I
they
I
didn't.
think
They didn't have like they had some things for fans, but they didn't seem to have enough lore building and enough connection. It was very much a Star Wars story that took place in the Star Wars universe. That's not so much Star
But
Wars.
we'll talk about that in episode 7, because episode 7, you have to realize, is coming off the chase where they eject the hull and then they're on their way. And then Jude Law's character's like, oh, the parents just happened to send up a probe so the ship can get past the barrier. Like, and then the whole thing is they've known they've been on a backwater. Like, that kind of thing. And you see about the vaults. Now, the idea that this has been making credits for a long, long time, right? And of course, it's always the bad guy. He's going to take over the planet, and God only knows what's going to happen with the treasure. But I like the ending. There's parts of it that are good. It's just the plot is weird.
I think
Like,
I think they focus more on it being a show for children than it did Star Wars, and they just took space and whatnot without any of the glue to really hold it together.
but in episode 7, that's kind of where you see the worst of it. They go, "Oh, the ship is the key to get past the barrier."
Yeah, and then it's real. And when they blow off the ship, they sort of realize, oh, it wasn't just an outer shell; it was actually a cover for the ship.
So the idea of the ship being there, getting to it, it's like then you have, of course, the suspense ending. Because I was thinking they were at least going to have one episode to explain why the planet was hidden. And I thought that was going to be 7.
They sort of did explain why it was hidden. That the Republic held it because it was pretty much a mint for the galaxy. So they didn't want the mint being directly attacked. So they thought the best thing to do would be to sort of
Now,
hide it.
do I feel that they did an expose dump, like with the kids and then the parents? Would you kill the parents or whatever? Like episode 7 has this weird, like it's setting up. If you're trying to set up a penultimate episode, you want something. And I do feel what episodes were really, really short. Because like some of them were like 45, some were like 30 minutes.
Every second episode was a little bit shorter, except
It's like in 30 minutes, you could have easily, with the way the show was, extend it to like a 45 minutes and done it. And it's like
would this be necessary? That's my main concern. I gotta push back a little bit there. I feel like most of the Disney Plus TV shows so far, they had pacing issue. Let's be honest, Ashoka, pacing issues. Obi-Wan, pacing issues. I feel like they kind of heard the critique that maybe they were trying too hard to make it very long and stretch. I feel like here they knew the target audience would be kids, and they got lower attention span. And not only that, but most of the other TV shows made on Disney Plus are not really competent in terms of pacing. So maybe they were trying a new format. Um,
I
that's
think
the
the
pushback I
pacing.
got.
I think the pacing more for this was very kids. I don't think pacing has necessarily been horrible. I think it's just been the ability to tell story properly has been kind of lacking since Mando season 2. Like,
Ahsoka felt to me like a combination of Rebels season 5
well, yeah,
and trying to set up Heir to the Empire.
well, yeah, that's what Ahsoka pretty much was a
Swear, because like Heir to the Empire, people have been saying for the longest time should have been the next trilogy. Yeah, it's one of those ones. It's regarded as that, but
yeah,
no.
it should have.
But episode 7 kind of is. It's just like, oh, he gets through the ship, and you realize whatever, what the barrier is, and then they land, right? And then it's good. Like Jude Law's character executes it very well. Yeah. That's
But
just at least my thoughts on it, because a lot of it is I was expecting.
well, in our last discussion, we had so many. Oh my god, it could be this. It could be this. I'm not sure whether we were just expecting too much, or just as fans who know much of the lore, we were just inputting too much of what we would like to see. Um, as I was going to say before when we were talking about pacing and whatnot, I think the other problem with pacing and that is that because it's on Disney Plus, because it doesn't have commercials or time spots, they no longer have to comply to 30 minutes or hour episodes. There are some shows that get away with it, and then they just fill up, like, and they usually throw them on at night, and they usually got space for like a fuck ton of commercials, but very few shows can get away with not fitting into the 30-minute blocks.
And I will also add more.
And
If you have longer episode, that means you spend more money in each episode. So
it's
maybe
not
the
even that,
quality would down.
not even that, because as with the show, most of it was practical. It wasn't even all special effects. Most of the show was practical, so it's not even that. And I think the problem is you get used to longer episodes or shorter episodes, and then you get a long episode. And sometimes even of a regular show, if you get like a two-parter that's shown together, can feel long and drawn out because you're so used to those 30-minute blocks. My real first experience was the Family Guy special that had like 2 or 3 episodes put together. It was released on Blue DVD and then split up between 2 or 3 episodes later on. And I remember first time watching it, feeling like it was dragging on, like it was going on too long. And I think that's the problem for some people, is they're used to a specific block of time, and then it's just longer episodes feel drawn out. Where if where Mandalorian was almost more reverse, where you were used to longer episodes, and then we started getting some short ones, which feel almost rushed.
That's kind of like I'm not like saying it's a Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, you kind of went into it knowing it was going to be an hour episode.
Well, yeah.
Anything less would have been
length, and where it changes, where there's no set length it has to be. Like they can say we want approximately between this and this. We do want some episodes this long. I don't know what goes into the production details, but I feel like that's a big part of what sometimes can be is that they draw on is if you're not used to the certain length, or if you're used to shorter or longer, it can affect the feel of the episode. Where if they were all the same episode, it would have a different feel.
There could have also been the problem of I think initially it was set for 16 episodes. I really do.
Hell no! Don't tell me they plan on making 16 episodes. I think 8 was the perfect number. I feel like if they did 10, maybe that would work, but maybe that would also impact the budget each episode adds. but I feel like they had the perfect sweet spot. But
No, I
I'm
don't like.
crazy, maybe.
Honestly, personally, I don't like the shorter episodes. Um, I feel like the shorter episodes, like the shorter seasons, I should say, just you can't do enough in said time. I think you sometimes need like what would be better, 8 long episodes or 16 like half an hour block shows that can sort of be more. They can tell better. Like some episodes would be split into 2 episodes, but could tell better, like more parts, can explain certain things better parts. Like the whole War Planet episode being 1 episode could have almost been split into 2 episodes.
Like, but
Actually, I agree with that aspect only on that episode, that specific episode, because I think that one was the most unique episode in the bunch, and it went very dark on a kids TV show.
Well,
So I don't
that could
know.
have happened even if it was split into 2 episodes. And I'm not necessarily like that's just one that comes off the top of my head. Like I don't necessarily like some of those shows that do split every episode into multiple parts. That's one reason I wasn't a huge fan of the Clone Wars, the final couple seasons, where each story was like a 4 episode block, because it just the story drags on a little too much unless they can. Very few of the stories can carry on like that and keep its.
see, it's kind of, you got to think of it as when Disney, uh, with Bad Robot, it did Doctor Who as a prime example. They ordered 16 episodes, 2 seasons of, and have split it into 2 seasons of 8. Now, anyone who knows Doctor Who is always going to have like that style. And what I felt like with Skeleton Crew is, however they wrote it, and it was written, it had of all ages feel. And this is something I've heard across all YouTube people who have watched it. It felt like a show for all ages. It had the coming of age for kids. It may have started with a kid show, but maybe it was also a feeder show because, as I said, there's a lot of stuff it looked like it was meant to feed into a side project.
Well, and apparently they will show back up in the Mandalorian movie.
The
Is what I've
Mandalorian
heard
and
rumors
Grogu.
of.
What?
Okay,
How do
so
you connect this thing to
Okay, rumor.
Mandalorian?
It's rumor. I read
there's
this.
a rumor. There's a rumor of a Mandalorian Grogu movie.
No, that's
That
not.
is,
That's confirmed.
That's official,
there
yeah.
is. It's in the now lineup along with an heir to the Empire or a new trilogy.
The movie is not even just. It has been confirmed because they even showed some test shots from it, because they showed Mando back in a Razor Crest being flown by Zeb. But there's rumors that they will show up. Do we just want to skip to like the whole series because we're kind of already based on jumping up?
We can go back to episode 7, and what were your thoughts on episode 7, specifically Dark Mandalore? I think Dlord had spoken a lot about episode 7, and
well, yeah, we sort of got into this whole tangent. Episode 7 was okay. It was just kind of. I haven't watched them since they first appeared, and I'll explain that later on when we talk about the show as a whole. It was okay. It was kind of predictable, sort of predictable. You get the confirmation that you get an unofficial confirmation that he was a Jedi, which is then briefly, so horribly explained, apparently filmed and cut out scenes from the final episode of him being trained. But it's just, it just felt so rushed, and it's hard to talk about the individual episodes anymore because, as we kept saying, is we'll come back and review each episode once we see the ending, because the ending can decide if the whole lead up was worth it or if it was a splat.
And I will say, I give it a good solid. A lot of these episodes are a solid 7 out of 7 or 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
And
but
they are, except for the finale,
which is the discussion we will have in a few moments.
if
Not yet. We are not there yet.
Uh,
yeah,
So, do you want to add anything, Mandalore,
well,
to
yeah, I was just
episode
going to say
7?
that it sort of, I don't remember where the episode cutoff was. I just,
The cutoff was when the bad guy was threatening the parents
in the
with
oh,
the
right.
vault.
lightsaber.
No.
Oh, when he was sort of, when what's her name was down there and she was sort of like still lying to the parents and things, it was still, don't tell anyone or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
No, he sees that. No, it's when the parents come down and the parents come close. He pulls out the saber and does the threatening, like, oh, now I know who your parents are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just sort of, I don't really have much to say. I'll just add it to the sort of end. So you guys go with the.
Okay.
It
So
was a good cliffhanger, but the payoff needed to be better.
I agree with you, Dlord. Um, so I guess I will quickly go over what I had to say about episode 7 more specifically. Um, I only had one issue with that episode, so just because of that, that's probably one of the weakest episode this season we had. So my only issue, it felt very off that they don't do any ID check, and anybody with the right chip can access any vault. Way too easy to make any sense, and it's very convenient. Oh, everyone believes is the supervisor, or I don't know, like the superintendent or something, and they don't even ID check. They just blindly trust that person. I don't like that. It's very convenient.
That was,
Outside,
well, I don't think everyone has a key. I think it was more just you could only get into the planet if you had access. So it wasn't like they needed to have the key very specific. It was sort of the whole planet was locked up where you had to have the ship, where you had to have a verified ship and everything, and you had to be verified. I don't think it was that
The
everyone on the planet.
mystery of the ship, because there's one thing I always saw through the series, like, why did you need a particular ship? You could read between the lines of the ship was more important, and then there's the perception of why was the planet guarded beyond the fact it was a mint. Like, the idea of it, and the ship had more of it, especially when you saw the ship itself. Like, and it gets into, like, the next episode, why the ship is what it is. I don't think they,
they
like,
didn't really address it.
well, you kind of see it when they're going through the barrier, that when the ship gets near it, the bombs turn green.
It's sensors, and I think it might be related to the ship ID or any of the other things that they showed in Mandalorian with his ships and they having to the beacons, the IDs. In Bad Batch, you see it where they can change things. I think it's all related to that. That you have to have a
But
certain.
it's a messy plot. Where was it the ID, or did they just throw in the ship that was special when they say what the ship is?
Again, that's something that could have been more explained if there were more episodes, or they were all sort of. I think they were. It was a little too rushed. I don't think
You
they.
know, is that the episode where they explain they stole a mint ship?
Well,
No,
I
the
can't
captain
remember.
stole a mint ship.
the pirate stole a mint ship.
Now they never explain how he. I don't want to get too much on that topic till the end because
Yeah,
I've got a whole little rant about
Oh,
that.
yeah. But to get
yeah.
back to episode 7, I think overall, despite that one issue I had, that was a solid one. I enjoyed watching that, and I was hyped for the final episode. And I don't have a lot more to say outside of the parents. Well, I should say, Win, Dad, and the girl boss mother were kind of cool. They were the only decent parents, I think. The other were kind of useless. But to get back on track, I I will give episode 7 a 9.7 out of 10, near perfection for me. What about you, Mandalore?
Going by just the episode alone and trying to be separate from the whole
Yeah.
5.
Okay. What about you, Dlord?
I give it like, I think it's one of the episodes. I give it like a 6.5.
Okay.
I did it being, but bear in mind, I kind of was. It has its moments that are really like the show has some really epic moments, but then there's also these moments that are like, they fail or drop the ball.
Yeah. So I guess now we dive deep into episode 8. What did you think of specifically episode 8, D-Lord?
Episode 8 was going to be. I'm like, okay, if you're not going to do the exposition dump, you're going to see what the supervisor is. Now,
Oh,
I messaged Mandalore after I watched it. I'm like, what the fuck did I just watch? The
Power
build up.
Rangers with spaceships.
not
Like,
even that. The whole
no, let me.
almost that scene with the supervisor. I will say this: that
Okay,
almost
okay.
ruined the whole
Yeah,
show
so
for me. Just on
the
that
idea.
one
Let me
thing,
say this.
I almost turned off the fucking show.
Okay, I would have laughed. I go, okay, so we get to see what the supervisor is. Well, I figured it was a robot, right? Why is it only robots? You see the men and everybody else. Now, I'm not even going to get into the whole plot with the supervisor, and I could probably look and describe this as I describe the scene. Mandalore's probably trying to forget it or seize up if he remembers it. The supervisor goes, I thought he was a pirate all along. And still gets stabbed through the fucking eye, which turns off the entire planet. I'm like, what the did I just watch? I'm like, how do you get this in a finale?
That was so asinine. So we came up with so many better options.
We did.
Disable the town, disable the city.
Like, I still go back to my Old Republic and like going back that far and just going, having an HK clone and just have it try and at least fight back a little bit and just have an attitude. No, it's a supercomputer that doesn't move, that has an eye. Oh, and has no defenses, and it can be stabbed and stopped.
No, it just goes. He goes, I love the explanation. He goes, how so? Now, this is where you get the part where when did the planet get locked up?
It was explained that it was during the days of the Republic. Was
it during the Clone Wars? Because they said the last time they heard from the Republic was the Jedi were bad. So that would put it near the end of
I
Order.
thought it was, the kids.
The kids, no. The computer himself said the last time we heard the Jedi were bad.
Because I thought they explained that it was locked up like before the Clone Wars, like early Republic, like not early as in High Republic, but somewhere
between the High Republic period, between which would have been Acolyte to
after Acolyte, like after that garbage that never happened. But the whole thing was, they said when they questioned it's a robot, they're like, yeah, it was decreed by the Republic, blah 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 blah. So it might be that it was locked up clearly during the Republic at some point, but it might have still had connection to the outside world. It might just stop getting server updates.
Maybe that was like by Revenge of the Sith. That's why they think Jedi are bad.
The only thing is, Palpatine was very much, he was rich and he took, you'd think he would have had access and would have used those credits or switched it over to Imperial Mint. if he would have known about it. So it had to be before Sidious was in power.
So if it got forgotten about, I'm like, okay, so if it was, because the idea of the minefield, because it had me thinking as well, because there's parts in this moment, right? Like when they're attacking the ship, right? When because I had asked Mandalore this, how many rebel fighters had warp drives? And I remember X-Wings could do it, but they show, I want to say it was like
B-Wings.
B-Wings, yeah.
B-Wings were the ones that did the destruction.
But yeah, like B-Wings are, like, I get them confused with A-Wings a lot. A-Wings are the little, the bombers, the small ones. Who are
The bombers are Y-Wings.
What's the one that looks like a cart? Smaller.
Here, 1 second.
You'll find it, but no, it has the B-Wings and the X-Wings. X-Wings can travel. Supposedly, the B-Wings can too. Because there's but it's a good battle scene. The problem is they try to, when the ship is crashing, it's like the assault on the Super Star Destroyer.
This is an A-Wing.
That's the A-Wing, yeah.
It's shaped like an A. Most of them you can tell what they are by they're shaped somewhat like them.
The A, yeah. A's were the skirmishers.
Sort of.
They have the purpose.
There was Y-Wings, which were bombers, and then there were those heavy bombers, which they used.
They have the ones that have the Ys that have the ones that are like a long wing that they lock into place. It's not the X-Wings. That's why I confuse the Y-Wings and the B-Wings.
Are you talking about the one that was in Ahsoka?
I can't remember.
What are the big difference between all of these wings outside of the leather?
They have different purposes. Like, as I said, Y-Wings are bombers. A-Wings are more just the tactical fighter. They're more like the pawns.
X's are the X ones are
fighters. Are the A-Wings aren't even as much used. Like, they were more smaller. They were just kind of fast little ships. They were kind of like the sport ships.
X can be used as both.
X-Wings were also, they had the warp drives, or not warp drives, but they had the
light drives.
The light drives. And they were better fighters. They had different modes. B-Wings were a prototype and that were used, that they were very sort of, they didn't have as much firepower, regular firepower, like they had the super attacks, but they were, they can maneuver a lot better in space, but they required a lot more power and a lot better piloting. There are so many different versions of these, and like the Y-Wings, there's the older Republic ones that were more solid and stubby than they have the ones that you saw in like the movies that have the hollow wings at the back.
Like most
that's a whole thing, and I would recommend.
There's a whole thing in what you see in the period. It's kind of like when. Now, I am ultimately curious with a lot, because a lot of when the ship goes crashing, that's kind of like the attack on the Super Star Destroyer kind of thing.
I think that I felt like that was kind of a reference to that, like when the B-Wing just starts shooting at the giant ship and it doesn't necessarily destroy it right, but it starts crashing and then just...
Now, that does beg the question, though, what kind of ship was the freighter? Was the freighter, you would think they have some armor, but yeah, it's arguable to say what kind of ship it is. But no, when you get to the explanation what they're going to do, and you forget, and I kind of know the other part is the whole struggle to blow up the minefield so the X-Wings and the Corellia freighter, or what is it, the ship can get through from, what is that one called?
From space?
God, the ship. I can't think what it type of
The
ship.
bad guys, the pirates?
No, you had to blow up the barrier, and the
Yeah.
parents are trying to stop him and his force abilities. Now, there is a whole what Jude Law's character potentially who he was taught by, but the idea, and then there's there's a lot of weird little bad scenes, like, oh, I'm going to kill your parent, and then they have the struggle to pull down the lever versus the force power. And then it ends with like Jude Law's characters just waiting to be executed or captured. Like, what the fuck? And everything goes, and then the X-Wings fly off. You have the moment where he goes, I'm going to become an X-Wing pilot. And that's where I'm like, this is all leading towards Rogue Squadron.
Well,
There was all these Easter eggs.
Well, I think it was kind of like, I think the Rogue Squadron at the end was supposed to just be a tie-in to previous shows to sort of connect it to the big picture. They did release, or there was a deleted scene. There was an actress who filmed a scene who was supposed to be his master. Apparently, he was trained by a Padawan, someone who has survived Order 66, but then she got caught and killed. So he wasn't trained much. I think what they did was they filmed this season. From what I see and how I've predicted, is that they filmed the ending planning for another season, or for them to show up in another show and have a bigger role, another somewhat of a role, not just a cameo. He's going to be I think he will be sort of they'll have to, for some reason, they'll have to force up a team up between them, the two of them, and he'll become an anti-hero sort of thing. Like the way they just left him to be arrested and show that up later.
Yeah.
That he survived. It's like, oh, he's a Jedi. He had very little training. They left it for him to come back, and I think it would be
I thought they set it up to where he was potentially trained with. He was a learner that survived and escaped.
He was not a learner. He was someone who wasn't part of the Jedi, who was found by a survivor, a Padawan survivor, who was then given some training for a very short bit, but then they got
They died, and he lost faith in humans or people.
So, okay, there was a deleted scene or something said.
That
do you remember
it was him
when they go to the planet, when they're going to the hotel planet, and that is apparently Sith writing on the wall.
Oh, I don't know about that. I just know.
I saw the thing. Someone said it, and that is Sith writing, and he could read Sith writing. Because on the writing on the wall, when there's like on the outskirts of like the hotel, that scribbled on the wall is supposed to be Sith writing. And Jedi could not read it. We're not supposed to read it.
The only thing I know, well, yeah, because they banned the reading of it. Like, the only deleted scene I know of is him getting trained by a Jedi, or found by something to do with his training, whether being found by the Jedi who survived or whatnot. I didn't pay too much attention to, but it was an unknown person saying that there was Sith writing and he knew Sith. The only thing I could think of is that they're trying to connect him to someone else.
I've heard they said his teacher could have been not Ahsoka, but damn it was the lady,
the one who showed up in
who was the one from Force
Tales of Star Wars, Tales.
Who was the one from who was the master? Shakti. The one that was not Shakti. Who was the one on the planet in Force Unleashed?
Oh, that was Shakti.
Shakti.
Yeah, the one who's died like 5 times and there's never been an.
They said initially Anakin stabbed her while she was meditating.
Grievous stabbed her.
Then someone
Like it
else
never.
said then in the later in the Force Unleashed games, it said she was killed fighting on the planet, and that's why
And I think they
Felucia
went with
fell to the dark
I
side.
think the official one is one of the either Anakin or Grievous. I can't remember which one is technically canon, but it's never been officially shown in canon. It's a deleted scene. No, that's not what I thought. I'm trying to remember what this. It's a Lego series, not Rebuild the Galaxy.
To get back on track, since Dlord already shared his thought on episode 8, what did you think of episode 8, Mandalore?
Well, I think we might as well start bridging into the whole because it's the end piece. It just kind of I thought was so lackluster, and that's because with that, I want to say the second last episode was a 3 or a 4 out of 5. The whole show was visually spectacular. Like, no matter what you think of the story, even in this episode, just doing the X-Wing fight, doing everything part of this has been spectacular visually. And the fact that it's all more practical than digital, for the most part, makes it even cooler. It was kind of very sort of didn't tie things off the episode. It sort of, I think that's part of the thing is if they want to do more story or continue the story even in other projects, not on its own, they leave so many things open ended to sort of have a story. But it's I don't know, like the whole like this show, like the episode episodes per episode are good. Like there's nothing I can really pick out of this one episode other than just the sort of lackluster that came with it. Like the ending sort of like the ending just kind of nulled any sort of real.
The action was good because it's spectacular. It is what you see in a Star Wars. Oh, they're attacking a ship, but the many stupid things to me between were shit.
Sorry. Well, and I think it's also where we had bigger views of it than actually happened. Like, I think we were just hoping too much, but this is the same thing I mentioned about Mando season 3 and Ahsoka, or not so much, but even the Book of Boba Fett. Like, there were so many twists that they could have done that would have made the show pop more. But they didn't. Like, I'm not sure if it's just whether they have other plans for certain things or that's. But the show left off on there was no mention of the Pirate King of who he really was. Like, you never see his face. The whole administrator being just a robot, no one of excitement. There's just nothing that really sort of makes it stand out. The episode alone, even as with everything else, it was just so.
So I guess these were your thoughts. Episode 8, underwhelming.
Well, it's hard to sort of like the episode was good on its own, but when you take it as like if there was more episode or another episode to sort of like a final episode to tie things off, it'd be one thing. But it's just it sort of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Like again, I'll do this as a whole review overall. Visually spectacular episode, everything. But there was just no real payout for sitting along and watching the whole show. Like,
well, I liked learning about the main villain backstory. That was kind of cool. I like that aspect, and the kids trying to tell the truth to the parents. That was kind of cool, and the big fight with the pirates and the X-wings and the whatever wings they were involved. I like that. I don't know. Maybe it's because I had no expectation that I like that. Maybe that's what happened. Um, but yeah, I really liked episode 8. I liked the entire show. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than the both of you. Maybe that's the benefit of being a normie.
No, shut up. You're not normal. You're French.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
no, but I say, but no, I felt like I enjoyed most of it. Like it
No.
had an all ages show. It's just like the finale is good. When you see like the ship, the frigate, like I'm like, okay, the frigate's a little armored, right? So it could take off. It could shrug off probably a majority, at least some of the early fights. But when you have like the Corallian freighter coming through, I think that's the name of it. The one from what's the first one? The one ship. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, the X-Wings could penetrate some of the armor. Like it had to been like an armor freighter to a degree.
Oh, that's what. Okay, and I found the show I was talking about. I'm not sure if either of you have seen it. It was Disney. It's non-canon. It's the Freemaker Adventures. It was a Lego.
I didn't see that.
They are supposed to also be doing like a second season of Tales of the Jedi too. But
Well, I think they're doing aspects from different, like they did Jedi, they did Sith. I think the next one, who I don't know if they're doing one of the others, but the main character was a young guy who was trained, and he was originally first trained by someone he thought was a Jedi who turned out to be a Sith. He was double trained, and it's non-canon. I could see them sort of taking that sort of character and turning it sort of slightly taking parts of it and making it. Again, this is me trying to probably put more thought into it than they did for the story.
oh no, I actually the other person who was thought to be his potential master, and I will say Mandalore, you will probably know this, but many people wouldn't, was the Dark Lady.
That was no, she was better trained than that. Like she was.
Well, maybe a hint because now my whole thing too. I still want to know what timeline of the Republic was this in. Was this pre the BTFOing of Coruscant?
Well,
The
this
entire
well, yeah,
system?
because they kept mentioning Coruscant, and then they said, "Oh, that was from before the war," and they're like, "War." That's what another big issue as a whole in the show is time is never really explained in it. Like they reference different periods of time, but they never lock it down. Like when does this take place? When did the planet get locked down? When is the planet? Where's the planet from? Like there's so many like open end things. Like again, this is for kids, so I don't think they went into the having to explain things as fully, but
I guess this is the perfect moment to ask you about specifically episode 8. What would be your grade out of 10 Mandalore for just episode 8?
5.
What about you, Dlord?
I give it a 4.
I will sound crazy because I had no issues and I really liked watching ships hitting each other and the kids standing up. That was a great finale for me. And again, because I'm a normie, I guess I give it 10 because that was a perfect episode. I had no issues with anything. I liked it. So I guess that closes off the 8 episode discussion. Now the overall season. So now you can unleash the anger, Mandalore.
There's not even an anger. It's just more of a disappointment more than anything. It's just, and it might have been I let myself like expectation of something bigger happening, but just the whole nothing happened. Like it was almost like a nothing burger happened. Like the end, it ended off with no real connection to any other series, like other than possibly the one show that never happened, which keeps every so often gets, oh, they might be doing it, they might not be. Other than that, it's just kind of, there was no connection. There was no after credits. There was no, you will see the skeleton crew again in so and so, like they've done with that almost every other show. Like you will see them again. There was nothing like this. Was and it's a standalone. Like, is it a standalone show? But there's been rumors that it's not. They could have done much more tie-ins to just any sort of hint, and like they went with this whole other show that they didn't end up doing. Like, that's why I like them doing sort of like other shows. Like, I thought they were going to show Mando showing up fighting because he was technically a thing for hire and dealing with pirates, and we saw in season 3 he fought pirates, so you'd think he could have shown up to help take care of some of the pirates.
But maybe they are in the another part of the galaxy or something. That's why they didn't show Mandalore or whatever.
Did you forget that they teased Mandalore at some point during the season? Oh, look, there's Boba Fett. Boba Fett's going to come correct Mandalore. Remember that?
I don't remember it, but
in
maybe
the Mandalore
would.
Series, they even have it where one point he sees Boba Fett. Like why didn't you have Boba Fett go see him?
But either way, like, we know that he's a subcontractor for the Republic now. Why didn't they have him? Why didn't they have someone like Zeb show up? Like, we know he's a fighter pilot for the Republic now. Like, why didn't he? Or why didn't any? Or oh my God, Hera show up? Like, they could have done so many other.
Maybe it's
things.
just,
They didn't even need to show him. They could have shown the ship and just heard a voice.
Maybe it's just after Return of the Jedi.
Hera, they were already part of the Republic.
I don't know. I tried.
No, I'm just saying, because if you watch Rebels, it takes place before the Death Star 2. I think it takes place before the Death Star. It takes place before New Hope, I think.
I mean, the thing about, like,
because they show the crystal that they're trying to mine for the Death Star, so it was either before the construction of the Death Star or the Death Star 2. So either way, by the end of this, they were part of the Republic, so they were fighters anyway. Like, they could have shown anyone, just even the ship and the voice, but they show no connection to any of the property. Like, and that just seemed like...
I mean, I'm assuming because the idea... The thing is, too, I think the show, it's kind of it fell problem to the canceled projects. Because you can look at a lot of shows that were slated to be in Star Wars that either get forgotten about or memory hold. And this could have been it.
But here's the thing. Like, unless they secretly filmed the other show or most of the show and it was just kind of in production, it was canceled again, they could have done others. Like, by the time Skeleton Crew was being filmed and they were showing things from it being filmed, they knew that show wasn't going to be a big thing. They could have thrown in or replaced it with some other connection. Like, there's so many things thrown in that just have no payoff.
No, they have no payoff, or the fact alone, if you cleaned it up just to be a child's coming of age story, which I think that part of the show is good, but why bait the whole...
Well,
my whole thing is...
Like the Pirate King. Like, they baited about the whole mystery of the Pirate King, and they never really show him. Like, I understand you sort of see his corpse later on, or it's supposed to be his corpse, when they first discovered the ship. But
now, my thing... Let me see this.
They hide the face. Like, when you see the recording of it, they hide his face. You see the statue, which hints that it could be a relative of what's his name. And I said, oh, his father could be in charge, and it's the pirate who's in charge and whatnot. But nothing. Like, they let up so many sort of, like, hints. And then
why wouldn't you have had... Because if it was going to go back to potentially the old Republic, meaning the period, I guess, that the Mitt disappeared during the High Republic period, right?
Well, again, that's part of the issue is that they never fully explain period points. They're just kind of throwing in names without throwing in explanations. Because when they first talk about it, they sound like they're talking about the Old Republic. Then it sounds like it's High Republic or Republic as we knew it, how we're introduced in the prequels. But they never actually set down what they're talking about.
Now, I will play devil's advocate. Maybe they did that because they don't know the lore very well and they didn't want to contradict anything, unlike the Acolytes.
No, because the problem is all the shows have to be approved, and there actually are lore experts who usually, for most of the time, work on shows, and they usually get confirmation before they talk about things. It's also a very simple, and I think what's his name even sort of had part in the show. Like he sort of double checks them. What's his name? Clone Wars, Mando, Dlord. What's his name?
Filoni.
Yeah, Filoni. He doesn't. It's not that he even writes, but he sort of even just kind of goes and checks on things, and that's kind of his job now. And I just think
the thing
But
is with
using that
Lucasfilms,
if
he
you
does
use
have it.
Dlord, if you use him, that means you need to spend money on him. So maybe they wanted to save some money somewhere.
Filoni is
pay for that.
unofficially. Filoni is unofficially the current father of all the current lore. It's like in DC right now, James Gunn, and I think one of the other people is in charge of all the writing for all of like what the lore or the lore keeper or the direction of the stories. Everything is like in DC right now is run past James Gunn. Supposedly David Filoni, and I think there's another guy. He's like every story is run past him. At least that's the rumor.
Well, I don't think they were used for Acolyte because we're not getting into that fight again. But if Filoni was part of it, the one thing is Filoni loves doing connections. He loves connecting things.
Maybe they had no faith in the project, to be honest, and they were like, "Let's just dump it." I don't know.
Well,
At that
okay,
point, I
if
try
the
to understand,
Acolyte,
but I don't.
supposedly now, if you go off the theory, Acolyte was the last major shot at the wall written by Lynn. Well, see, if you follow sometimes the timeline of the canceled shows, they said there was theories Acolyte was the last last major shot they were going to give Star Wars to change anything as canon or anything. Now, this was just the insiders because they put everything on Acolyte. Now, we all know how Acolyte failed. We all know it was a probably billion-dollar failure for them, judging by the price of the episodes. Now, if that's the case, then give or take the why. And my whole thing is there's been all these canceled projects. We're looking at I was looking at the current, they added another sequel trilogy, right? They just added that.
Well, they add and remove the sequel trilogy.
And then they just added Tales of the Jedi Season 2. They added another Vision season or something. Like you can go back, kind of look. You go back and look. They just added another trilogy. This is, they said, for the current slate. I'd have to go look it back up a second. But I know when Art saw it, they have an unnamed trilogy. Apparently, Rey's movie just got a fourth writer.
Wow, amazing! That's very hopeful. I'm looking forward for a butchered new movie. Hell yeah, let's do this.
In all honesty, I was going to say, in all honesty, the sequel trilogy was out of the movies was the worst set of movies of the 3 sets, or including the
Agree.
middle movies. But
Agree.
I do compared to like the Acolyte and stuff, I actually found it tolerable. There's so many things to nitpick and bitch about. Yes, they fucked up a lot, and they fucked up with characters. Like they care, like why was like Leia should have, but because they killed off the wrong character, Han Solo showed up. He wasn't part of the Force. Yes, you can say Leia used her part to do that, but it was just so done poorly. Like they didn't explain things. They sort of rushed things. They used characters improperly. There's so many things wrong with it, and I can admit that. But I actually still really enjoy the sequel trilogy. I hate Kylo Ren he's a pain in the ass. The only time I can actually stand him is at the very end when he returns to Ben. Like there's so many issues that are easy to complain about, but I still enjoy it, and I can still down when I do a Star Wars watch party of just the movies. I can still go and watch the sequel trilogies and not cringe. I can't do that with the Acolyte. I do like Rey. I think she was rushed and there wasn't enough backstory for her. But I agree with all the complaints about her, that she is a Mary Sue. Like they could have done it better where she wasn't, where she showed more training, even just doing a montage. They didn't really do that. Like,
but she's a woman. She needs to be perfect to get back on track to Skeleton Crew. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mandalore or Dlord?
Oh yeah, as I was going to say before, I haven't watched the episodes since they first aired. With most shows, like with Mandalorian, I'll go like at the end of it, if the season finale is coming up, I will go and I will rewatch all the episodes from 1 to there to sort of get an idea of rewatch to see if I missed anything, knowing what's showing up, just to sort of get if there's an arrow, if there's a direction that's being very clearly strewn, watching it all at once and just where you see to see if there's anything that you can sort of predict or see what's coming better than just watching it week by week. I liked the show, and I was sick, so I didn't have the energy, but I just didn't have the urge to do that. Or even like if there's a new season of something, I'll go and watch all the previous, like when Mando comes out, I'll go watch all the previous seasons up until that, and then when it comes to the season finale, I'll rewatch the one season, the current season. I just didn't have that issue. Like I've even now like thinking, okay, I'm feeling better when I knew we were going to do the show soon. Like I should go back and rewatch it, the last 2 episodes, or just rewatch it the whole season because it's only 8 episodes.
Yeah,
it's not that I don't like it. It's just I didn't have the urge. Like the show it's a kid's show, and it did it well. And visually, the show was spectacular, and there was cool things within the show that I like. But there was nothing that really made me go, I need to rewatch it.
I didn't have that either. I didn't have the rewatch factor either. I kind of like, it's one of those things of it felt odd to me. Like I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it, but I forget it. It's just like parts of the moment. But it's so weird where it sets because they do have new movies planned, right? So Simon Kinberg's new trilogy that was announced will be 10 through 12. They have the Mandalore and Grogu movie. It's supposed to be released May 22nd and 26th. A new Rey movie, which has been in the progress for like 4 years, going on its 4th writers. James Marigold's, who did Indy 5, and then Dave Filoni's, which we know is going to come out.
Why did they rehire whoever did Indy 5? I don't know.
That was Kathleen Kennedy's little baby.
She's goddamn stupid.
And then they're giving Taika Waititi's a Star Wars film.
I thought that was canceled.
Yeah, I also thought that was canceled.
Last I heard, it was canceled because after the last Thor movie, Love and Thunder,
they got scared.
They canceled it because he now has a specific, like, certain directors have a certain style that they do in all their movies, but it's different. All his feel the same now, and they're just and all his movies are going downhill in reviews and viewership and money making. Like for 2 movies he did good, but I think he did such a horrible job on Thor that they're like,
They're scared for
yeah,
good reason.
I think they canceled it.
Yeah.
Or it's on indefinite.
And then
hard.
there's Sean Levy's Star Wars movie.
There's been so many. The problem is
Lando, and here's the other one. Lando has been in limbo forever.
Canceled.
We've heard that are canceled since what?
No,
the
it was recently
Han Solo
canceled.
movie?
No, it was recently canceled. Last year, because it was a show and then it was sort of canceled, but then it came back and it was going to be a movie. But then they canceled
That's
that.
never a good sign when you cancel it, you bring it back, you cancel it, you bring it back. That will never happen. I'm sorry
I think
for
the biggest
whoever
problem
wanted that.
I think is that they probably wanted to put too much woke agenda into Lando. Like they sort of made young Lando sort of like they always made him a flirt with ladies.
So now he's gay?
No,
He's pan.
He's pan. He'll sleep with anything. He had a love thing with his droid. Remember?
Why?
Yeah. So the only shows we
Oh.
know.
So that one I think was just, and also I
yeah.
can't.
Droid, I'm sorry, but don't normalize this shit.
Hey,
No,
but seriously, the only thing that we know of that is apparently slated is Ahsoka season 2 apparently has something. We know Andor season 2 is coming this year. Vision season 3.
Ugh.
Yeah, you didn't like Visions?
The first one was interesting. I didn't like all of them. There was a couple aspects of this first one. I couldn't make it through the second season. I think I made it through a couple minutes of the first episode and I was like, no, this is just. Or no, I watched a couple of the episodes and they were just. No, it was just. I didn't like it. Like,
there's a lot of series that have been like there's a graphic that is constantly updated. Like they still talk about potentially the Rangers of the New Republic. Like
it's a mess. We get it.
It's all a mess. Like
to get back
well,
to Skeleton
in all
Crew.
honesty, Rangers of the New Republic, I think, is currently being held, depending on how the Gina Carano lawsuit goes. Because if they have to
she's
give
not
her,
getting another job. I'm sorry, guys, but she's not coming back.
No, it's not about her getting back. Who knows? Because if her lawsuit, they might have to give her, or just pay her off, and they might try and go, we'll make a movie rather than just paying her off. And speaking of which, January 20th is International Cara Dune Fan Celebration. It's a day when fans of Star Wars characters come together to celebrate her.
I mean,
okay, who the fuck is that character?
It was who Gina Carano played on The Mandalorian.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's this whole thing, like Star Wars. The problem is itself is there's a rumor that they have milked all they can out of Star Wars.
I don't. There's so much.
Okay, this will appear like they're now trying to get the last of. Okay, Star Wars after the Acolyte, they kind of had to admit because from what I think with Skeleton Crew, they didn't announce really Skeleton Crew was coming out after the failure of Acolyte. Acolyte, they actually had in meetings wrote it off as it wasn't like I'm trying to find exactly like so they have a whole lineup of shows, and these are things where they're still there. They have like when you look at this, it's so they have movies Heir of the Empire, Mandalorian Grogu. They have Star Wars The New Order, Dawn of the Jedi, A Droid Story, Lando's still up here. They have uh, Love and Thunder, and then Sean Levy's TV show. This, I guess, was from last year. Acolyte, Skeleton Crew Bad Batch Season 3, Mandalore Season 4, Tales of the Jedi 2, Ahsoka 2, Season 2, Andor Season 2. Games, Star Wars Hunter, Jedi 3. That means Jedi Survivor 3 is coming out. The remake of Dark Forces. By the way, that's going to sell like hotcakes.
The remake
Knights of the Old Republic.
which is still in limbo.
The remake is still in limbo?
Yes, because there's...
I haven't heard... That's funny. I have not heard anything about it in a couple of years.
Oh, no, there's... It's, again, that's part of the limbo part is... It's all this... Because of all the woke agenda stuff, game companies aren't doing as well. Like you just heard the...
Yeah, no.
Ubisoft closed off a lot of studios.
No, it's not that... no, they have issues. No, one of the bigger, like, serious issues with, like, trying to say with... I remember the conflict with the Old Republic is Knights of the Old Republic. The remake is one of the directors, because there's a whole thing of... So I guess Star Wars Outlaws... I mean, I can only think what Star Wars Hunters is. It's a bounty hunter game. The Dark Forces remaster... I'm not surprised it's been in the works. Eclipse, that was have trailers for. Knights of the Old Republic. The problem with that lore is it's supposed to be a remaster, but I can guarantee you one of the directors, they're having an issue with it. And this was long before a lot of the games of the last 2 years. I can guarantee you the hang-up is how to handle, because you don't want to fuck up the Old Republic, because the older Knights of the Old Republic is a cash cow. Like, it is still regarded as one of the greatest games. And I can guarantee you they're arguing over the Raven lore, because there's a theory that they want to make Raven bisexual.
Okay, enough of that talk, Dlord. Let's get back to Skeleton Crew. We get it. It's a mess. It's bad. Industry sucks. Do you want to add anything else about Skeleton Crew specifically?
I will just say specific. The question is, I do believe this project was meant to feed something else. Okay. But I'm not sure what. Because there's a lot of other projects. Like you see bits of Rogue Squadron.
We should do a just Star Wars as a whole discussion one day.
Yeah.
That'll be like a 5-hour stream.
But no, it's something to do. It's just, I think, but we do not know the state of the current projects, considering how much was canceled.
Well, and I don't think Skeleton Crew will get a second season, unfortunately. It didn't do well.
Well, it's mixed. It's got great reviews, but apparently
nobody watched it.
Like, this isn't like The Acolyte where no one watched it. Those who watched it were just watching to hate it. People watched it generally sort of, it's a good show. Yeah. It's nothing that you have to watch.
Did they release the streaming numbers?
No.
Yeah, they have. It's the site I gave you guys last time.
Wow. So surprising.
So, okay, technically, if they're hiding, the thing is, if they're hiding the numbers, you know something is wrong. Like, okay, streaming services, it's one of the hardest things to tell if something is good or something is bad.
Because usually the way that they do streaming services, one of the aspects of it is, and that was what was sort of killer for Acolyte, which confirmed it being dead, was how many accounts sign up to watch it. Because not everyone signs up and stays for Disney Plus. They will watch, they'll get it for like a month or two, watch the shows, and then they'll stop watching. And then once a new show comes up, they'll renew, or people will buy to watch a show.
Mm-hmm.
like no one joined Disney Plus just to watch Acolyte.
Why am I not surprised?
Acolyte, no,
Um,
Acolyte had okay. So the click-through rates is the other thing. Disney doesn't release the click-through rates, but they said the click-through rate for Skeleton Crew was low, but no one watched it. But Acolyte had a horrible where you had the click-through rate or the stop and start watch, which I kind of. But then again, right, it plays into the whole idea. I think they threw all their money into Acolyte, and then Skeleton Crew was left to die on a vine.
and Skeleton Crew was a better project between the both. That's
Right.
hilarious.
But the
Yeah.
Acolyte ruined it because no one had faith in Disney anymore for Star Wars after the Acolyte. Like, Acolyte was so bad, it's ruined current projects.
And I'm going to say Jude Law's character, and like some of the characters are so good. Like the pirate captain was good too.
Oh, the wolf guy.
The wolf, yes, the guy.
He was also just spectacular. He was just cool and designed very well.
And then you have Jude Law's character.
Well, and that's just an A+ actor. Jude Law being Jude Law.
Yeah.
But it's the same way he pulled it off. Now, like, the idea is, but then again, I never really, I guess you guys have more love for the Mandalore series than I do. I didn't like the Mandalore series. I thought it was okay. Like,
I just like season 1. Well, actually, season 2 was kind of decent, and 3 was okay, but 1 was my favorite.
That's been there, but I thought kind of Book of Boba Fett it could have been done better, but it wasn't as atrocious.
I love the book, and this is where I get in fights
The
with
book
people.
of failure in my books.
The Book of Boba Fett was great. They just could have done better. They could have had more, I think. But I really enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. I love the new look of him compared to the old one, as I've said.
I liked Skeleton Crew a lot more than most of the other shows, actually. The only Disney...
Your say doesn't count anymore.
The only Disney...
seriously, Andor season 2.
The only Disney product I liked more than Skeleton Crew would be Rogue One or Mandalorian season 1.
What about Solo?
No. Wolf. I want to forget I've seen that shit.
Okay, Mandalore probably would. How did you like Bad Batch?
I didn't see that, and I didn't really care about it.
Did you watch the Clone Wars?
No.
You should watch you avoid the animation side of Star Wars?
It's more like there's how many seasons of that?
Okay, technically original. Mandalore probably remembers this like I do. The Clone Wars was originally done quite literally as like 15-minute short films.
Actually, I wasn't as much into Star Wars when they did.
Did you ever go?
I watched it.
Did you ever catch up to it? It was like 15-minute episodes.
Yeah, I've sat back and watched the 2 seasons of it.
There were only 2 seasons?
I can't stand that. I never liked that. That style of animation was good for Clone High and certain cartoons. But for Star Wars, it was just too goofy for me. Like, there's parts of it I love. Like Kit Fist, some of the Jedi in armor were amazing. General Grievous looked so much better in that than he did in the movie. But I just didn't like that style. There's aspects from there's aspects from the show I really enjoy, like Dirge and whatnot. But I just wasn't a fan of that and the lack of clones. When I first watched Star Wars, I always thought the clones it was never a switch in them. I always thought that they were the stormtroopers and they were just waiting to get the command to do it. Like they knew what they were doing. But after watching Clone Wars, I learned that wasn't the case. And it made the clones better characters. And
The
the
thing-
in between the original Clone Wars, the 2D one, just made them so much more of a weapon than as an actual characters.
The only problem I dislike with like the Jedi, like with like the the idea of and this goes back if we ever go back through, like the Bad Batch, those were supposed to be like, because there's a whole like good lore with the clone troopers, because you also had the commandos, which I'm really surprised they never did a commando series. Like the
Well, other than
idea.
the
I don't even
name,
know who Commando is, so I'm not surprised. Um, to get back to Skeleton Crew, any final thoughts before I share my final thoughts on the
Yeah,
entire
good.
season?
you've proven that your thought doesn't matter, so we can skip that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just being an. I'm feeling better. I haven't made fun of you in a couple of weeks. I got to catch up.
You haven't made fun of him because you guys are going to get a new
Okay.
female Canadian prime minister.
Nope.
Oh, please, no.
I'm going
I
to
want
move.
Pulyev,
I'm moving to
whatever.
Alberta and getting absorbed into the U.S.
So, I guess.
Otherwise, the show and overall the show was visually, it was spectacular. Once again, I've said that. The show was good. They're watchable. They're sort of very good for background things to listen to, put on in the background if you're just looking for something different. It's nothing go out of your way for, especially with how it currently is with the ending. It's not really worth the investment unless you're just looking for something new Star Wars and you've watched everything else. It's not horrendous. It's just that there's no payout, and it's almost kind of like meh. It's there. It's watchable. It's decent, but it's nothing that you have to sort of spend all your time on.
I mean, I agree with that.
It's nothing groundbreaking.
It's not groundbreaking, but it does do the visuals well. It
Oh,
does
the face?
prove it can
Well,
be done.
and the fact that it was all sort of practical effects and actual costumes, like there was 3D, like the space, especially in the final episode while they're flying through the protective layer. Clearly, CGI.
Aliens, I'll be honest, the aliens to me have looked better than they have been in like a long time.
But, and no, spectacular set design, you can't take that away from the show, no matter how much you dislike or like the show. It was done magnificently from production wise. I wasn't a fan of some of the cutesy sort of animal races that were introduced. Like, it was kind of like, that's very kid-like, but never been seen before, even in Old Republic times, and now they're just throwing these things in. It's just like, why? But
Flashy toys, flashy keys.
They actually haven't made that much product. They've done very little toys on this. They've only made one vintage collection figure. They've done the main cast, the main characters for the Black Series, and nothing else. This isn't a toy line, and a couple Lego sets that came out before the show came out.
But you can bet they did a bunch of toys about the Acolyte.
Not much, and they've invested money in some molds, so they're using them, but no, and they're sitting on shelves. And again, that's why they're not doing much of toys for this series. Is Acolyte sort of hurt in every aspect of Star Wars money making, that they're not jumping out to do stuff.
You know, the funny part too is where I think this show got reshot, even with the Asian girl having like 2 lesbian moms. That wasn't even atrocious. Like, if you
and it's how it should be. Like,
if you look at the story, it's a kid's coming of age thing where they're just finding their places. I just hate the plot devices they shove in to move the plot.
But
it's
no, that was one thing I was worried about, especially after Acolyte, was where they had a pronouns thing in the Acolyte, which was just like,
no.
Even if I loved the show at that point, would have ruined it. But I was afraid, like, after the first episode, or they appeared in the third episode, the week before they appeared up, there was rumors that, the Asian girl has 2 moms. It's like, the first couple episodes weren't great, but they weren't bad. But, and I even said, we'll see how it comes out. but they don't bring mention to it.
We were
There's
going to get
really
bait
no
and switch.
attention to it. It's literally just two, and that's how it should be done. That's how it used to be in the 80s and 90s. It's just there. It's not. There's no story revolving around two mothers. There's nothing that points out going two mothers. It's just literally she has two mothers. If you, some people didn't even notice it. They were both mothers.
I didn't notice it.
Exactly. And that's how it should be done. Not that they shouldn't be noticed, but there's not a whole, oh my God, this has two mothers. She has two mothers. We have to
We
explain.
are progressive. We
No,
get
I actually heard in YouTube people were going to make fun of people saying that. And I'm like, no, it's the kids coming of, like, they even probably hint that she has a thing for the black character. The God, what is his name? Bad with names in the series. They have a thing. Maybe that's who she likes.
Well, they show again, and there wasn't too much on attraction or anything because this is a kids show.
No,
like there shouldn't be, especially in the first season. But they didn't respect around attraction or anything like what Disney's done. And I think it might have taken out more woke stuff because they did that for
Inside Out too.
Yeah, apparently there was more things on her being a lesbian. Like
there's a more of an issue, but like the series is good. Like if you give it like it without thinking it's a Star Wars series, like the only thing I think they should have did is instead of having the giant Sentinel computer, have maybe what was the droid in the Old Republic? That model basically be the head of the planet.
That's what I said, and that's what I said earlier. Is that it should have been him. And have some more attitude and even try and fight back, not just this huge ass supercomputer that just gets stabbed in the eye. It should have been someone who had a fight. There should have been some connection. Like,
it's just there's
HK. They could have even thrown a reference to Revan in it. Like, just small things would have just. If it would have had an HK droid that says, "Oh, I haven't seen a Jedi in so many years. This reminds me of my previous master," and just.
If this is just alluding to because I was trying to figure out when the planet was secluded. I'm assuming that the treasure planets were.
I thought it was Old Republic.
It would have been during the High Republic or the right before the High Republic, which would have put it 100 years before. But how would the Republic lose track of a mint planet?
Because the plot wants it.
Sorry, but
do you want to add more, Dlord?
I'm good. It's just it was an entertaining series. It has a little bit of everything. But what I think is the rewrites. Whatever happened to this show, they did some rewrites that got more views than they probably thought it was going to get. Right.
Okay, very quickly. The At-N has been a mint since the Old Republic, but it was hidden by the Galactic Republic. So I'm guessing it was shortly after the High Republic switched over. So it was in the early days, like before Anakin. Because Palpatine would have used it for money, because he loved using money and he loved being rich. Especially in like legend sort of stuff. So I think it was done before any of that. Like this was done early on after
like in that 200 years before.
Yeah.
Like because there's a whole series of novels that they've hinted at during the what I think is like the High Republic period or the late Republic period, where they have talked about there's been a whole series of novels put forth in the lore right before the current, that because Disney keeps trying to get an Old Republic, where like there's a whole thing of a Jedi Master was going to take learners and some Padawans out into deeper space, and that spaceship got sabotaged. Right? Because, like, there's a whole... But it's a good series. It's just, there's parts of it, the plot which. You can say it got moved because, but they could have done
They've
a
been
lot.
very quiet on the whole production of it, so we don't know when things were reshot or what things were reshot too much.
Yes.
So we
And
don't know
that's
what was
fine.
removed, what was added. So I think the basic thing that that I think everyone is saying is
It's
just
entertaining.
it's entertaining. It's a
good.
decent show, especially if you take out that it's Star Wars for the most part. But when you apply to Star Wars, it's lacking, and it feels, and there was so much setup for bigger things in the Star Wars universe that never paid off. Otherwise, it's a good show.
It's a good fight. It has that. It has the magic of Firefly.
Yeah.
Without
I'd say it's better than Firefly, but I'm crazy here. So I only had one issue with the entire season. The supporting characters were weak here, and not every supporting character was needed. The only ones that mattered were Boss Girl Mom and Win Dad. The mothers of KB weren't needed, and they didn't add anything. Same goes with Neil, parents and family. Uh, I think anyone that's not in the main cast didn't matter. I think the mom of the boss girl was actually decent and she was somewhat memorable, and the same goes for Win Dad. But the other parents, I don't give a shit. Remove them, you still get the goods.
Okay, I have to criticize you a little bit. You say this is one of your favorite Disney properties, but you can't even go and learn the names.
Look.
Like, at least I brought up the names on another screen. You can't say it's your favorite, but not.
I'm just bad with names.
I struggle with names, man.
No, it's one thing, but that's how we done the whole
show. It takes me months to remember my coworker names.
And you just watched the episode last night.
Yeah.
So look, I get it why he does it. I can't remember the name of Win. Like the idea, right? But what gets me is in the line of some of the quips, I swear to God, like, well, yeah, when you come of age, you learn that the planet is just you learn about the actual history of the planet. So it's never leaked out that they're just a treasure vault planet. What the fuck?
So, and that's another question I have is they learn what the planet's actual purpose is, that it's a mint, that you're living on a planet that's a mint. Are they not allowed to leave? Like, it almost seems like a prison planet. Like, they're forced to live.
It's a prison planet.
They can't leave because you would have to disable the shield.
Well, and you can get in and out if you have the proper ship, and I'm pretty sure they have that, or just you can set up where it allows without destroying the shield. But it's just like you learn it. Like, is that why the father was so kind of going through the motions? Was because.
But there's also that issue too. You're maintaining. It looks like it's just a small ringed city on a planet.
It's like it's sort of utopia sort of things, like where from the outside or from the inside it looks like it's amazing, but when you look from the outside, you're actually living on a prison.
And they have to maintain a small population. And I am assuming not to throw the joke in from Fallout, after so many generations you have inbreeding. But like it's gonna set in. Like
so the elfin species is new because inbreeding created different that look like animals.
Yeah.
That's not different species. Though they're all humans on that planet. They're just inbreeding way out of line.
But no, you forget Neil's girlfriend. He liked that primitive girl from the tribe.
Oh yeah, you're right. She was cool. Now I got to say, outside of my one issue, I think overall it was a great season. The main group was solid with the 4 kids and the main villain. No filler. Pacing felt perfect for me. Well constructed season with great progression for story and characters. That's all I felt about the entire product. I feel like the season was consistent. And for me, the weakest episode was the first one. I had the most issues with that one. It was still a very good one. And when it comes to my favorite episode, I will be honest, I really don't know because I think that was a very consistent season, and I would need to rewatch to really pinpoint which episode was my favorite. I like that show. Um, so I'm wondering if any of you would like to add anything.
No.
I
I just
disagree
get
with you completely on the pacing. I think
some of
there
the
was
pacing. I'm
it was
sorry.
too
Some of
rushed.
the some of the I'll be honest. Like, oh, somehow she survived. Like, it's not even the Rugrats. Like, I swear to God, there's parts of when people are chasing the children. I get the scene from. Do you remember when the people were chasing young Leia through Obi-Wan? And
Yeah.
it's like a Rugrats chase scene.
Well,
And
yes.
then it's like, I do find like they could have done some of the stuff better. Like pirates, like children are just gonna walk through a pirate station. I'm like, what? No,
Oh, and I
there's
have to correct myself. There was one connection to Mando in the show. The one pirate who survived from the Cabbage Man from season 3. The pile of seaweed, one of his pirates, the one who Mando and faced off of on the planet. He was in this show, and we don't know if
is
he
that
survived.
the one that looks
Wow.
like is that the one that looks like belongs like in what is it? Shit. Davy Jones's crew? That one?
Sort of.
So I guess now it's the perfect time to ask you guys what would be your grade for the entire season, starting with Dlord. What would be your grade out of 10?
I give it like easily 6 to 7 out of 10. Its most part of the show is pretty good. I just oh god, the finale was a letdown for me. Like you, okay, even if you were going to like end it with the shot they end with is good. The cinematography in the final episode, when you get to like the battle scene, and then there's the Republic ship that they're going to have to explain to the Republic ship, I guess, how they've been hidden for 200 years or 100 years. They're, and then, but, you know, it's good in that regard. Like, but it's there. But it's just the finale is a giant letdown. No.
What about you, Mandalore? What would be your grade out of 10?
I've got to leave in a sec, so I'm going. Out of 10, I'd say it was pretty much how I've gone over the whole series. I'd say a 5. It's something watchable. It's tolerable. Visually, it's spectacular, but I don't find the story strong enough to really clear you through. Like, I don't know if this is necessarily a rewatch, except for you're going to find out that they're going to be coming back in another season or in another show or another property, Star Wars property. You might want to go back and rehash, like a couple of the episodes, like the last episode, maybe one or two in between. But otherwise, it's a decent show. I don't think it has much rewatch power.
Yeah.
Except for once every few years sort of thing. But it's not horrendous. It's not something where you go, fuck, that was a waste of time. That was a waste of... It was good. It's just nothing to jump to rave about. It's nothing to be upset that you didn't watch and miss if it were to be taken down tomorrow. It's not something where you'd be like, damn, I missed the best show ever.
I would miss it, man. Speak for yourself. I give, and I will sound like the crazy one, I give 9.7. I adore this show. Congrats, guys.
Right, I gotta get going.
And we are out. So that's the perfect timing. Thank you a lot, Mandalore, for these weeks of talking about that. And thank you, Dlord, for joining
right
in.
Before I go, like I said, we should do something where we just either pick a certain area of Star Wars to talk about. But yeah, I'll message you guys later.
And we are out. Have a good night, everyone.
Question.